There were several Chicago firms which merged into a national firm in Chicago in 1969, 1970, somewhere in there. One of the firms was Miller Mandel. My father was a partner there, Herb was a partner there, Cal Shiner was there, Bernie Burke was there, Al Abrams was there.
The firm was growing, expanding, very profitable, but the seven of us felt that as good as the firm is, now we were high-titled employees. We were partners, but high-titled employees, never being able to have much say in management as we were when we were with the local firms, such that even partners were added in our office, partners were removed from our office without our even having a say in it. So we decided, let's see if we could go back to the way it was before the merger. And after the April tax season in 1977, we met together at Herb Ostro's home and planned out what we wanted to do.
The firm was very successful in bringing their clients from their former firm with them. So we had a large tax practice to start off. It wasn't that we had to develop it from scratch.
When we started the firm, we had no employees, except one of our partners, Earl Kessler. His wife was also a CPA, so she became employee number one. And employee number two was Bernie Reisen's son, Richard, who ultimately became a partner in the firm.
My dad really didn't push me to do this, but Herb Ostro probably gave me the best advice I ever received. And what he said was, you can always go from public accounting to banking, but you can't go from banking to public accounting. So I figured, you know what, they're starting this company in November. They have a tax season. I know nothing about income taxes. I don't have an accounting degree. I'll learn something that'll help me. It'll be a temporary job. And my temporary job lasted 38 years.
We ran an ad in the Chicago Tribune for accountants, and pretty much anybody who responded got hired. And that's how we got through our first tax season.
I found myself at ORBA by answering an ad in the Chicago Tribune, want ads. In the day, I was older and was not considered trainable by the Big Four, which were the Big Seven or the Big Nine back then. So I was not able, I didn't even get an interview at any of the bigger firms. But I was hired by a man by the name of Earl Kessler, who was the HR director at the time and a partner. And we hit it off, and they offered me a job about a week later. I didn't have a lot of options, so it was a good fit.
Earl Kessler had an advertising client downtown on Ontario Street, 223 East Ontario. They were looking to sublet their space and move into larger space, and it turned out that that space was perfect for us at the time. And so we moved right into that space. It had private offices, it had furniture.
We were on 2 floors there, and the bathroom was not on either of those 2 floors. So it was an elevated building, but it was easier to take the stairs. So there were always people on the stairs going to the other floors to use the bathrooms. So we had a receptionist on the main floor.
And I was hired or placed through a placement agency. And it was snowing like mad, and I walked into the office and I looked like Alice Cooper because my makeup was all over my face. And then, I don't even think I knew it looked like that bad. And the person that was interviewing me, Bernie Burke at the time, asked me if I knew how to type, and I told him that I did, but my hands were too cold. And they hired me anyway. I was the receptionist, I was the mail boy, I was the file clerk. You had to file all of the tax data. But there was no computers, and there was no voicemail. Everything was with the pink pad of paper. It was old school back then.
We stayed in that space for quite a few years until we completely outgrew it. And then we moved to a rather newer building at 676 St. Clair Street, which was just a couple of blocks away.
So I started in June of '80. My first task was to pack up the office. And so I had a week to help pack boxes and then be able to get things moved over there. Came in that following Monday, and then my task was to set up the file room. So back in those days, all paper, we had all kinds of red ropes, and we had a numbering system. So we had to figure out how to organize it so we can find them when you needed them.
You use your 5-column paper, you use your 3-column, you use your 13-column. Everything was done by hand, and your best friend was your adding machine.
When I started, everything was done on ledger paper and a calculator, or an adding machine, a 10-key, and we were actually taught how to use the 10-key.
And I always tried to teach new ORBA employees to use the calculator with their left hand, because that left your right hand for writing. And most of them got it. Some of them didn't, but it really was a little bit of a time saver back then.
You know, we used to have briefcases filled with work papers. There are no more briefcases. We used to have, when you go to the airport, these wheelies. We don't give out wheelies anymore. Nobody needs wheelies because everything's up in the clouds. There's nothing to schlep.
I was getting home around 1 o'clock, 1:30 sometime, and I have to be leaving in a few hours. So what the heck, I'll leave the work papers in the car and we'll go upstairs and so forth. So I did that, went, got some sleep, came down the next morning, and my heart dropped. The car was gone. Somebody stole my car overnight, filled with all the work papers. Next day, the police called and said they found the car. It had been abandoned someplace near Rush Street. Somebody took it for a joyride, put a few miles on it. Work papers are intact. Hallelujah, I still had my job.
And I know for some of the older directors that predated me, you know, they started returns with carbon paper doing the returns.
I don't think kids today know what carbon paper is. I don't know if you could even buy it in the supply store.
We started an intern program. They had never heard of an intern program. And it has been extraordinarily successful for almost 40 years that we've been running it.
When I started as an intern, we did manual trial balances. We did tax return preparation by filling out forms that then got sent to Texas every night to be key punched, and they would send back a tax return, and any changes had to get sent that next night to have it reprinted.
And if there was a weather delay or any kind of delay, that really put us behind, because we were expecting all these tax returns to come back, which then had to be proofed because they weren't always key punched correctly.
Sending input sheets to Dallas was incredibly inefficient. Tax season for the staff would end April 10th because you needed enough time to send it there and for them to send it back.
That was the start of our computer technology, and we certainly have grown from there.
Getting our first fax machine was definitely a big change. We didn't know what the hell we'd do with it, and then it was overused. And some people probably don't know what a fax machine is anymore.
I was one of the first people in the firm to work on spreadsheet software. You know, what is now Excel, previously was Lotus 123.
When we got the new phone systems where you had voicemail, that took a little learning. Some of us older partners are not so quick with change.
Not everybody wanted to use voicemail. From what I remember, I think I still took a lot of the messages and then I had to put it into voicemail. And then it took a really long time for people out in the field to figure out how to dial in and get their own voicemail. So I think I was still keeping the pink pads for a long time.
We were never first in the game. We were always lacking our competitors, or at least we were told we were lacking our competitors in terms of our technology. Now under Mark Thompson, that has changed. That in today's age, we are where we are supposed to be.
So it's changed tremendously in what people do, and in my opinion, not all for the good. Part of doing everything manually is you had to do it and understand it. Today, the systems will do it for you, so you don't necessarily have to understand it. You can still get it done as effectively. So that's part of the transition that, you know, I still think that we're missing with the technology and what it's done for us, but there's so many other positives with it that it far outweighs that issue.
Well, the biggest culture change to that was, you know, we used to wear suits and ties to the office every single day. Even if you weren't going to be meeting with anyone, you were still sitting at your desk in a suit and tie.
You know, we were three-piece suits. You wore ties. It was what it was. Wingtip shoes, I think, were, you know, part of that ensemble at that stage.
Skirts and had to wear nylons. So it was you needed to keep an inventory of your hosiery to come to work at ORBA in those days.
Sometime after 2000, maybe even before then, the world changed and casual wear was coming into play.
I think I kind of pushed the envelope just because I wasn't trained in any kind of office skills, and I had no conception that I was really supposed to come to work dressed like a professional. And Bernie Risa would call me in and go, you know, Karen, he goes, you know, you're really doing a good job. He goes, but you're always dressed like you're coming in from a night out. And so I told him, I says, oh, Bernie, you should see what I wear when I go out.
And then after a number of years go by, you kind of wonder, why are we dressing up for ourselves when we're in the office? So then it changed to, well, if you're out a client, you abide by the client's attire, but when you're in the office, let's move to business casual.
And then it became Casual Friday. And then I think you had to pay to wear jeans on Friday. At one point, it was Friday, then it was Monday and Friday. Then you could wear jeans. You couldn't wear jeans unless you paid $5, and that went to a charity. And we were talking about that the other day, that the envelope, which I had to keep, was always short. Somebody, I mean, they were accountants, but somebody never knew how to make the right amount of change, and it was only $5.
So yeah, there's been a lot of change in the attire. I still have a closet full of ties. My wife says, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with all of them, but you never know if we're going to change back again.
And then we came over here in the NBC Tower in '92. So that was a big move. So that's, again, giving us expansion for a lot of additional people, and we filled it up with people as we continue to grow.
It was the first time I think the firm was able to really start from scratch. It was going to be a plain, you know, how do you want this built out? You know, you were just going to have a floor and we could do whatever we want.
And one day we decided that maybe we should try and develop a not-for-profit portion. And I give him a lot of credit, Larry Sofian. He raised his hands and said he would learn the audit special rules for not-for-profits, which of course, not being an auditor, I had no idea what the heck that meant, but you know, there's books and books on all of these special rules and that kind of stuff. And he agreed to do it.
But we also developed practices in a number of other areas like employee benefit plans and medical groups and things like that I think those are important milestones. And probably when Mark Thompson became the managing director was an important milestone for the firm as well, because we made a deliberate decision to reshape that role at that point.
So in 2011, we finally said we need to probably look at running this more like a business. We're big enough, and we need to have people dedicate more time towards the firm versus just client service. So that's where we set up the managing director role, and we set up the executive board. So we have people now spending more time saying, what do we need to really run this more effectively to support the growth, to support the directors so they can do what they need to do, and then start bringing outside professionals.
It was really a great decision to hire the first HR person to allow us to professionalize what we were doing.
We brought in IT, we brought in marketing, all the other areas so that we really got professionals to allow us to grow and do what we needed to do to go forward.
The firm has grown tremendously from back in '77. I think now we've got as many as 180 people. We've been ranked among the top 25 firms in Chicago for the last many years. And we're still independent, still growing, and I hope we are able to continue that for many years to come.
ORBA started out as these 7 guys who wanted to run a firm their way. And that culture just kind of got instilled in all of us.
Appreciate how much I was able to grow as a person. You're a very different person than when I started back in 1980. And what I'm doing, and the confidence and the ability to be part of a large group. Things I never even dreamed of.
As I was saying goodbye to some people prior to my retirement, one of the comments I kept coming back to was being part of ORBA afforded my wife and I opportunities just so far beyond anything we had dreamed of when I started. The firm has been successful, and I've gotten a chance to participate in that success.
When I first took this job, back in 1984, I thought I would be here for a couple of years and then figure out what I was going to do with my life. And I never expected to be here 38 years later.
The respect I got at work, the challenges I got at work, the comradeship of the work, I just couldn't figure out where I could go and support myself as well as I was supported at ORBA.
People need to love coming to work. To me, nothing seems more horrible than a poor person in life getting up in the morning and not enjoying coming to work. I mean, life must be hell. I couldn't wait to get to work each day.
I think my 20s and early 30s, I learned an awful lot. And I didn't realize, probably until I started talking to today, how much I learned then that helped me later on. So I guess I have to say a lot of what I got was from the original partners.
And I'm looking forward to a new generation of people to keep the firm going.